So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to our panel, the first panel discussion which is coming after lunch. I know exactly this is the most tedious and difficult time slot. But anyway, I hope that it will be very informative and that we will also be entertaining to one way or the other. My name is Georg Weingartne. I am the commercial counsellor at the Austrian embassy in Kiev. And I would like to welcome all of you here. What is the topic of our panel discussion here? The topic is Building Back Better, Opportunities and Challenges on the Way. And we have heard already in the preceding discussions about, for example, that the representative of the DG NEAR from European Union was mentioning that Ukraine will be built back in a way which has not existed before. So it will not just be a rebuilding of a copycat version of Ukraine as it has been before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine before the pre-2022 era, but it will be a building of new Ukraine. It will be a building of a new infrastructure and also of a new energy infrastructure. And then we also heard the ambassador of Ukraine who was saying that building better and building faster would be actually the aim. We have already heard in the discussions before that there are divergent opinions whether that is possible or not. And we will also ask ourselves these questions during this panel from our perspective. Our perspective, that means we have a perspective here of several institutions which are non-governmental institutions. We have a perspective from NGOs, which was also already pointed out before in one panel discussion, that this is a very, very important stakeholder group in Ukraine. We have a perspective from international organizations, in this case from UNIDO. We have perspective from think tanks. And we want to put those perspectives together to get a more concise picture about the overall situation and the challenges. And the questions we want to ask is, what are the practical timelines about rebuilding Ukraine in a better or faster way? What are the challenges? What about fast-track solutions, which, I put that in asterisks, do no harm, but are fast? And are they actually a way to solve the issues? Or, as we already have heard before, are they a way that the fast-track solutions become a type of permanent solution just by a matter of fact, and then no one is replacing them? So that is what we're discussing here, and I'm very happy to welcome our panelists here. On the very, from my side, right side, I would like to welcome Pavel Bilek. Pavel is Deputy Head of the Energy and Climate Team at the Berlin Economics. He's also Deputy Head of the Low Carbon Ukraine program funded by German Ministry of Economy. And he's working very closely together with Ukrainian government in all types of policy advisory in decarbonization pathways, renewable development and energy efficiency. Next to him, I would like to welcome Andree Böhling. Andree is an energy expert at Greenpeace. I think I don't have to introduce Greenpeace to you here. Next is Tetiana Boyko. She is the Houses and Energy Programs Coordinator of the Civil Network OPORA. OPORA is an NGO, a civil network in Ukraine, which has various fields of activities, but one of them is also tech and one is energy, as I've seen. And finally, I would like also to welcome to my right Serhiy Porovskyy. He is a principal expert on energy efficiency, financing and policy of UNIDO. And I would like to say thank you very much for all of you to come, and would like to hand over to Pavel first to give him the floor.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Can you hear me well? Yeah. If we could put up the slides, please, if we have them. Very good. Wait, let me just try this. Awesome. Perfect, George, thank you so much for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. So I'm going to spend roughly the next 15 minutes talking about what is arguably the ugly sibling of the renewable energy sector, and this is energy efficiency. So it's a topic that's not as much discussed, and we've heard this already from a few of the speakers, that we focus a lot on the supply side, on the rollout of renewables and other technologies, but there's very often not enough attention that's actually being paid on the demand side. And in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to try to kind of convey why that's important while using a few different examples. So when looking at energy efficiency and the way that I'm going to approach it today, there's two parallel kind of streams that have to be looked at. One is the national level. This is the big picture goals, targets, policies, regulations. And then there's the local level, so the municipalities and the actual implementation of energy efficiency projects. And those two streams are very deeply connected, but often are not kind of tackled simultaneously. So I'll talk through that as well. So maybe just to open up and to give a snapshot of, the kind of size and scope of the damage. So I'm pretty sure everybody's aware of this now, but the Ukrainian housing sector has been the most affected sector out of any sectors in Ukraine since the start of the Russian invasion. And so about a third of all damages has been sustained, or over a third of the damages has been sustained in the residential sector. We're talking about 85 million square meters of housing that's been damaged or destroyed, about 250,000 buildings that have been affected, totaling damage of roughly about $60 billion US. But that number is actually from a lot earlier this year, so the number's even higher now. And what we do know is that, some of this has been repaired, but the problem is that a lot of it hasn't been repaired, and a lot of it has been repaired to an inadequate standard as well. So what we've always known as well is that the Ukrainian residential sector has been highly energy inefficient. So what we know is that, the majority of all buildings have been built before independence, and therefore also before the existence of any real kind of energy efficiency classes or standards. And when we look at now the Ukrainian housing sector compared to the EU, what we see is, a difference of about 2- or 3-fold in terms of energy inefficiency. At the same time, and this is not a pro or a con, but just something that has to be mentioned that I'll refer to a little bit later on, is also, the fact that district heating has been a significant portion of, or district heating provides a significant portion of heating for Ukrainian households compared to other countries. And the penetration has been very high, but also the system suffers from very high loss rates, both in terms of the actual physical losses in the system, but also in terms of monetary losses. And a lot of this has been due to decades of underinvestment, as well as subsidized pricing. And so what we see is that a lot of these multi-story buildings that are hooked up to district heat are not really able to, for example, regulate their own internal temperature system, and therefore this then leads to a number of other inefficiencies as well. There are some good news already in terms of this Build Back Better story, and that's the fact that the reconstruction process has mandated that there is a return of damaged housing to at least a Class D or a Class C energy standard according to Ukrainian energy efficiency legislation, something I'll touch on a little bit more. But really, the benefits here are clear, right? I think we can all agree on this. It's thermal comfort, it's energy savings, it's financial savings as well in terms of lower bills. But at some sort of bigger picture, we're also talking about emissions, and most fundamentally, I think, energy security as well. And that's an important part of this conversation. So I want to talk about some real concrete numbers here, because it's always good to contextualize things. And to provide an introduction, this is a study we did earlier this year through a different project with some partners in Ukraine and with IC Consulenten as well. It was a study that assessed the reconstruction or the potential reconstruction of the entirety of the damaged residential stock in the city of Bucha in Ukraine. So we looked at roughly kind of all 560,000 square meters of damaged housing. aggregated it into a number of categories, and then wanted to look at what those savings would actually look like and what the economics primarily of what this would look like as well. So maybe just on the physical side, we had two kind of main scenarios. One was this kind of minimum requirements building back to a Class D or a Class C, as I mentioned, or this kind of like real near zero, looking at upgrading things to a Class A with renewables on site as well. And so from a pure physical perspective, I mean, the savings are massive, and I think everybody would have expected this. But for single-family houses, you're really able to get reductions of about 87% of energy use if you upgrade to the highest standard. In the multi-story apartments, it's a little bit less, but starting from a lower base as well. And when we were looking at the entirety of the city, again, only the damaged housing in the city, what we found is that, if you were to upgrade everything to the minimum requirements, you're saving about 45% of energy compared to the baseline. And if you go to a near zero, you're looking at about 73% savings. So again, that's a lot. Within the context of only Bucha, this is about 14.8 million cubic meters of gas that's saved both in terms of direct use by households, but also in terms of district heating, which then there's just not that much demand because the houses are more energy efficient. And so there's real important implications here for what this means for national security, what this means for energy security more broadly, and in general, some sort of kind of decarbonization as an energy security process as well. And of course, the emission savings are incredible. So in the case of Bucha, it would be the equivalent of taking about 26,000 cars off the street. And again, this is just for the damaged housing. This is not even for the entirety of the housing stock. But it's expensive. I mean, that's obviously what's holding back this entire process, and has been and is an issue not only in Ukraine, but everywhere in the world. So in terms of some of the estimates for how much money is actually needed, in the NDCs, the amount was seen about $13 billion until 2030. But in the thermal modernization of buildings until 2050, we're talking about amounts of roughly 160 to 214 billion US dollars. Or euros, sorry, in this case, which is just a huge amount. And the very fundamental aspect is that there's just not enough money for this. There's not enough current funding schemes. And at the moment, there's a very significant economic problem when it comes to energy efficiency, and this I'll dive into a little bit later. So anyway, there's a huge need for private investors to bridge this gap, and something that we can discuss later on as well. So kind of, again, bringing this down to a more local level and trying to contextualize this. So Bucha is a city of about 50, 60,000 people, and a lot of the housing was damaged. But the way what we found in terms of the numbers was that you would need to spend about 106 million euros just to get the housing back to some sort of baseline state, which was already very energy inefficient to begin with. Then if you wanted to go up to some sort of minimum requirements, so Class D or Class C, it's another 108 million. And if you want to go for the near zero, that's the 106 plus 212. So that's roughly 318 million euros to get this housing back to the most kind of energy efficiency standard. So this is just a little slide in between. It might not be obvious to everyone, but there's also a very significant difference in terms of the investment costs as they kind of apply to different types of housing. So as we can see here, for something like a single-family one-story house or a two-story house, we're really talking about very significant cost per square meter, whilst as the building gets bigger, the cost per square meter, which is the unit of measurement here, gets a lot smaller. Okay, fine. We talked about what the benefits are, what the problems are, but there are real structural economic factors that are limiting the uptake of energy efficiency in Ukraine that need to be addressed before any of this gets fundamentally better. So high upfront costs for energy investment and energy efficiency in general is a problem everywhere. But again, within the context of Ukraine, the issue is also with inflation, it's with high interest rates. Quite frankly, almost 3 years into the war, it's also a matter of fiscal capacity and the fact that, people don't necessarily want to spend huge amounts of their money and their savings, which have been dwindling over the last years, spending into energy efficiency. But the bigger structural problems are related to pricing, and especially to the existence of what have historically been low prices, regulated with price caps, that have led to market distortions, energy inefficiency, and the inefficient use of energy more broadly. This is something that's also a massive problem in the renewables market. But here in the energy efficiency sector, what we really see is an extension of payback periods that make a lot of these investments simply unprofitable. And I'll show you some of the numbers later on. There's been an argument now that electricity prices have gone up significantly in the last few months. This is true. That jump has been about 60–70%. And this has led to some extent, more cost-reflective prices in the electricity segment. So when we ran this study a few months ago, the payback periods for solar PV panels were between 11 to 14 years, whilst now, when we recalculated it using the new electricity price, it goes down to about 7 to 9 years. So this is actually really good. The payback prices for small-scale home solar panels have improved, and that's awesome. But this hasn't been the case in other sectors, and it's quite important. There's been a lack of financing and support, and so there's a need to think about long-term funding commitments from the government and international donors, and that has just also been a fundamental issue. Part of this is, for example, mechanisms like the Energy Efficiency Fund that have significant eligibility issues that prevent a number of people from applying. So currently, the Energy Efficiency Fund is only open to multifamily homes with homeowners associations. That's about 20% of the housing, and only about 3% of those can apply, and single-family houses are not currently included. So this is what the payback periods look like, and the reason why I want to show this is to show the huge difference that actually just changing the energy price makes. So if we're talking about moving from some sort of, the low prices are effectively the prices that we were seeing a few months ago, and the cost-covering prices would be if there was, effectively cost-reflective pricing. So you can see that in some of these cases, it's almost doubling or halving of the actual payback periods. And here again, the electricity price went up by 60%, but what this did to the actual payback periods is that it decreased it from, on average, about 33.6 years to 32.2 years. So that's completely insignificant. And the reason why that is the case is because the majority of this is related to heating. It's related to gas, it's related to district heat. And as long as the gas prices stay low, ultimately there's not much of an improvement in terms of the paybacks for these things. Good. So, okay, what are some solutions? And we can talk about this more broadly, but it's already important to bring up some of these now. So part of it, and especially in terms of the ability of houses to access financing, is minimizing the eligibility gap. So opening up more of these programs to more houses that do want to invest in energy efficiency. A part of it is definitely reducing the upfront cost. And so part of the story here could be opening up the EF to non-homeowners associations, still having the homeowners associations as the bedrock, but having different incentive structures for example, larger grant components for multifamily houses that sign up for a homeowners association. Part of that story is also thinking about different phase-in periods into converting loans into higher grants as buildings form homeowners associations, and focusing on faster reimbursement or disbursement of the funds to decrease the upfront capex. So again, something that's been a huge problem in terms of spurring energy efficient reconstructions. We think, and I mean, this is, I think, a broader discussion, but also part of what we've been hearing here today, activating municipalities and having municipalities as, not only loan takers and fund distributors, but just as larger players within the reconstruction process is fundamental, because ultimately, those are the people who know exactly what's going on the ground. The citizens actually come to them automatically, and since, I think, March, there's been new legislation passed that actually enables municipalities to take, and different sized municipalities to take larger loans. So this could be a way of effectively having the municipality as an underwriter for some of these investments. I guess I'm coming up on time, right? Yeah, I'll speed it up. Great, so minimizing the investment gap is something that we can discuss as well, but here we were thinking a lot about the building of socially efficient housing. And this is especially within the case of large-scale displacement of peoples across the country and the need for new housing to be built up. Again, having the municipality play some sort of role would allow for lower interest rates, softer loans, possibly partnerships, so PPPs and other formats, and then green mortgages could be a possible tool as well. I could talk for hours about market reform, but maybe we'll leave that for the discussion. But again, I think I've made the point that this is ultimately one of the things that's drastically preventing the rollout of energy efficiency solutions, because quite frankly, things just don't pay off. And so there is a need for a larger grant component at the moment. And a skills shortage is obviously something that we're also seeing in the renewable sector more broadly, but could provide some sort of opportunities for especially the integration of not only women, but veterans back into the workforce through the actual kind of development of skills programs, technical vocational education and training. So this is my last slide. And kind of to answer the initial question, I think the good news is that there are already no regret options that are available. And I think in these cases, we are able to balance this question of, do we go fast or do we go, or do we build back better? And I think there are some solutions that allow us to do both. I think every study has found that solar PV panels on roofs are one of the ways to go. And this is for single-family houses. This is much easier. For multi-family houses, it's a lot harder. But still, the payback periods are much better now. The lifetime of these projects is very good. And this can automatically contribute to not only decreasing bills, but also energy security, especially in the times of blackouts. The second thing is a lesser known thing, but it's individual heating substations for houses that are hooked up to district heat. So this is a heat exchanger that effectively has a very low upfront cost for the kind of benefits they can provide, super low payback periods. And so part of what we're also saying is integrating these two things into almost every single housing project and almost making them mandatory as something that can actually lead to pretty good benefits. And the last point is about thinking about how to phase and pilot these things. There's a lot of agencies and people working on it, but again, maybe focusing on larger multi-story apartments as a first step could provide more of a bang for your buck kind of situation, whilst simultaneously having a larger kind of sample size of buildings and then being able to scale up these pilot projects into something bigger. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I'm very much looking forward to the questions and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Just one question from my side. When you were mentioning, let's say, hard facts, issues about that topic, but what is the perception of Ukrainians about energy efficiency when you talk to them on the streets? Are they considering it like a type of necessary thing, or are they rather considering it like a type of a thing which can be done after the war has ended somehow?
Yeah, this is a really, really good question. Thank you so much. So, I mean, the study that we worked on in the case of Bucha, we did with a local Ukrainian NGO called EcoAction, EcoDia. We work with them quite a lot. And they've recently conducted another study where they actually did like a surveying test, and they were trying to find out what the perceptions are of energy efficiency more broadly. And so one of the bigger findings was that 74% of people sampled didn't think that there were any support solutions whatsoever, so no kind of mechanisms that could actually be utilized for this. And then about 50% effectively didn't know that installing energy efficient solutions would increase the value of their house or their apartment or whatever. I think then the more striking one though, and this is a bigger picture kind of thing that has to be addressed, was that about 75% of the people surveyed say that they shouldn't pay more than 20% of the total cost, so that almost everything else should come in terms of some sort of very good grant or maybe a very, very soft loan. So if you're looking at that amounts to be paid, then it's quite difficult actually to think about how to get this done. So there has to be thinking that also incorporates awareness campaigns, that incorporates kind of better medialization by the government. And I think now there's a push by a number of different civil society organizations to get the message across that energy efficiency, especially before this winter, is fundamental. But I think this is a long-term project. I mean, it's not like the energy situation will be solved possibly even by next winter, right? So I think having these things and these kind of best practices in place now are fundamental. And I think, more and more awareness raising, but also putting together better programs is a possible way to hopefully achieve that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think this is also an important task of the NGOs, which were mentioned before, to raise awareness about that issue. And that brings me now to or do you want to, Tanya, do you also want to join?
Maybe yes, maybe I should continue, because my presentation is linked with Pavel's presentation. Does it make sense to talk about them while the war in Ukraine is going on? It's quite difficult, complicated to answer when we see the cost of these measures. Obviously, it's unrealistic to rebuild all damaged or destroyed buildings in Ukraine according to NZEP technologies. But I believe that it's possible not only to talk, but implement certain elements already. Let me start my presentation. Okay, thank you. There are no... Oh, okay. It's only an introduction. There are no official standards and requirements to near-zero energy buildings in Ukraine, but I hope its requirements will be implemented and adopted as an order of the Ministry of Territorial Development until the end of this year, and it will be official requirements, and it will help us so much. Our organization, Civil Network OPORA, we assist the government with preparing an analytical report and also conducted public discussion about these requirements and this project of the order. And let me share some conclusions. Based on the practice of European countries and preliminary calculation of the use of energy efficiency technologies, we can define the main approaches to such buildings is minimization of primary energy consumption, is attention to building envelope elements, it's consideration of building location, is use the high efficiency energy systems and integration into smart grids. It's important to note that the requirements for NZEP buildings significantly differ from country to country, but they have some common trends. It's a regulation of primary energy consumption parameters and requirements for thermal residence of building envelopes. Let's have a look and according the of construction and operation of buildings constructed according to the existing requirements and NZEP requirements. Here we take into account current commercial tariffs, but if we are talking about residential sector, everything is quite more complicated. As you can see, the additional costs are paid back in about 25 years. This is not conducive to the mass adoption of the buildings in Ukraine at the present moment. But the situation is gradually changing. As the energy costs, I think it's will raise up. Nobody knows, but I think it will happen maybe in 3 years, but it will. In addition, the security factors has become a priority, namely guaranteed energy supply, which is much easy to ensure in energy efficiency buildings. In general, NZEP constructions require 30% more investment. At the same time, if energy tariffs increase by more than 50% of current commercial tariffs, new construction and reconstruction of buildings to NZEP level becomes profitable. Therefore, given the tendency for such growth, it is necessary to start testing technologies of implementing pilot projects now, which will also allow training and require a number of specialists. Yes, as I told, and the first step is testing individual NZEP technologies during construction and renovation project with performance monitoring, which include climate control management system, hybrid solar power plants, proper installation of wall structure and roofs, installation of higher thermal residence window structures, implementation of energy consumption monitoring systems, and heat pumps. All these technologies are used in Ukraine. I can say that nothing doing, but not in complex. And at this slide, you can see different energy efficiency and renewable measures for different types of buildings: medical institutions, educational institutions, children educational institutions, administrative buildings, shopping centers. And we can see, for example, that solar panel it's not necessary to use in educational institution. The next step is construction of pilot buildings, incorporating all recommendation and NZEP element and measures. Such buildings will serve as educational and demonstrational facilities, allowing the selection of the best combination of measures considering cost efficiency. As we heard the presentation of Julia, NEFCO are doing a lot in this sphere. Also, I had a conversation with the World Bank, and they are able to provide assistance. And I know also that in other program, Habitat for Humanity, they are planning a pilot project in Kalush, Ivano-Frankivska Oblast. I think it's very, very important to have a data, to have proven, to have calculation for talking about massive construction. Because now it's maybe for learning, for studying, for trying to do something. The next stop is very important, which we talked about. It's implementation of educational programs in educational institutions, and I think not only in educational, it's for the whole, but the recommended educational programs for the following specialist categories. At first, designers, builders, service and management companies, residents, project managers. Also, I think the second one is homeowner association, as you told, for all residential building managers and etc. But the lack of engineering and specialists, it's a huge problem. Maybe I think it's the second problem after funding and cost efficiency. The next step is max construction and renovation of building according to the NZEP standards. And I want to say that before we start that step, we should implement 4 previous steps. It's quite important, and it's very important to do it in complex and starting now, start of widespread adoption of individual NZEP technologies. As I told, something are doing now. Then development and approval of the NZEP standards for Ukraine. As I told, I think it will happen until the end of this year. It's a construction and reconstruction of pilot buildings. Some things are happening now, but I think we should continue that, and maybe also this stage maybe might be implemented during the reconstruction. Maybe Yulia today mentioned that, for example, when we are doing reconstruction, for example, kindergarten to social housing, social affordable housing for EDPs, it makes sense to use NZEP technologies. Also development and methodological guidelines and training programs, training a large of numbers of different specialists and other stakeholders, and then I think it's provide mass construction according to NZEP standards. Till that now, I think the key issue is development and approval the NZEP standards for Ukraine. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Tetiana. I just have one follow-up question to this. You mentioned that the importance of pilot projects, of pilot buildings,
Yes, sir.
according to the NZEP standards. Now, this is also a question which I encounter very often when I talk to Austrian companies. They always want to know where are the pilot projects, which projects should I look at in the Ukrainian market to start with, and would you say that, for example, governmental buildings could be the first type of pilot projects for NZEP standards, or what type of buildings could those be?
I think the government building, it's a good idea, but not for today, because of the wartime and the access to government building are limited. And I think we should start from an educational buildings, such as institution or colleges, which might be also a training centers, like a demonstrational centers. Also, about pilot project, as I mentioned, it might be a kindergarten, which is rebuilt for and reconstruct, for example, for social housing for EDPs. I think we should start from local level.
Can I add? You want? Yeah, just to wake me up. Yeah, to wake me up, maybe, because I was like, falling down, lunch.
Continue with your presentation.
No, I will give to Andree, yeah.
No, the presentation will be done by Andree.
Yeah, exactly. Andree will do the presentation, not mine, yeah. But actually, just to give a little bit, meat or example, actually there was already examples of NZEP projects in Ukraine, specifically in kindergarten. Fantastic. Like really, there is a technology. I think the development was done with the support of the government of Estonia. So they have the technology specifically for the kindergarten. It's a very smart solution, and it also works as an educational thing, not just for the kids, but for their parents, because people finally can see a huge difference. And from that, it's like a chain reaction. You understand where you need to go. So just saying, it's in Zhytomyr. So the presentation was a year ago. It's in Zhytomyr region, a kindergarten. So yeah, we have great examples.
Thank you very much. And with that, we come to Andree, and we bridge the gap to the municipal perspective, because kindergartens, of course, are run often by municipalities, and that brings us to that, also other educational facilities. So Andree, please, floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, welcome. Hello, everybody. I'm also really pleased to be able to participate here at this impressive conference. Yeah, for me, the first time. Yeah, I'm talking about pilot or demonstration projects we have initiated, and actually about yeah, the role and maybe the potential of municipalities as an important actor to be faster on building back better, yeah, I would say. Yeah, I'm talking quickly about our organization. I'm not sure if really everybody knows about Greenpeace and about our project in Ukraine. And then I'm coming to your question for this panel as well, and of this actually conference, yeah. So Greenpeace is an international organization, and yeah, we are quite proud that we are completely independent of politics and parties and industry, and we base on 3 million supporters worldwide that donate to us. Our portfolio of let's say issues and topics is of course about climate protection, but also about biodiversity, ocean protection, so forest, agriculture, also peace, of course, it's in the name, of course. And yeah, so in Ukraine, we just opened a new office just 2 months ago, and we are very proud of that, especially in those times, yeah, to give a strong message to the world that we are also ready to work in Ukraine. And we are based in 40 countries, active in 55 countries, and one really big asset of our work is that we have many volunteers who support our work. And yeah, most offices in Europe, but yeah, as you can see, on all continents. And right after the full-scale invasion, that means Greenpeace Germany and Greenpeace Central Eastern Europe, that office is based here in Vienna. They initiated this project about the green reconstruction. And yeah, our focus is on sustainable reconstruction approaches and sustainable energy use, but also on documenting environmental war crimes, also linked to nuclear safety around Zaporizhzhia and Chernobyl. Yeah, and here you can see my team now, which is based in Kiev. Yeah, very young, female and talented team. And since 2 months, we have an office in Kiev. And I would frame our approach, or in one sentence, we try to inspire decision makers on all levels, yeah, from the municipalities over the government to EU and EU institutions and other international institutions like banks to decide for higher investments in greener solutions and yeah, building back better solutions, yeah. And we're doing this by, let's say, 3 approaches. One is about demonstration projects or pilot projects. The second is about what I said about documenting false and exposing false solutions and the risks of other technologies, and also of the war. and the Russian aggression, and then we also develop like concepts to do advocacy work to the government and also to international institutions. Yeah, we published a report about the potential of renewable energies, or about the potential of solar in this country, which is far higher than what we could see in the Ukraine plan, for instance. And I'm talking now about concrete projects. So this was our first project, and it was like this simple project of reconstruction and demonstrating where we should go with the approach of building back better, which means that, of course, we included energy efficiency, and then we showed that with solar panels, with battery system and heat pumps, we can run a very resilient energy supply for a children's hospital. It was in Horenka, close to Bucha. That was the first project with partners, which was actually very successful because it led in the right direction and found many followers. And of course, it was a matter of timing. It was very early in the discussion. And yeah, we can see, and I'm not going to speak about all the numbers. I think we've heard the benefits already in detail. That there's also we can see also return of investments and the benefits on the economic side of those projects. And the second approach we started last winter in the energy crisis, and we saw the first wave of attacks, of Russian attacks on the energy infrastructure and power outages in the country. And then we started to think about emergency generation. And of course, this is a fast track also of a needed solution. But then we thought, okay, we can add something, make it greener, make it maybe more cost economic as well. So we started these two pilots in a school in Ostomel and ambulatory in Mykolaiv to present our system, which is so complementary to running diesel or a petrol generator. And we added like a battery system and solar panels. And we want to prove the impacts. And of course, it very much depends on power outages and the running times of diesel generators, and that will show if how big the impacts are and if we have return of investment. But it's maybe an example of how to combine maybe faster and better. Yeah, just an idea. And the third project I want to share with you is actually we started here in Vienna together with Andy and Lena from IC and CES and with the mayor of Trostenets. We're thinking of multi-family residential houses and an approach of sustainable energy generation for those houses because that's still needed, still like demonstration projects needed, and also research is needed. So that's how we started. We choose Trostenets because the city already is committed to a zero gas strategy and develops, with the help of IC and CES, already a master plan for the city, for the reconstruction, but also for the sustainable energy use of the city. And also the size of the city was, for us, for such a project, manageable, and also the mayor is really active, progressive, so a reliable partner. And the project is about the heating system for a multi-family residential house and in general for those houses. Yeah. So the idea was to come up with a demonstration project, on a pilot project in the city of Trostianets, but then also to learn of this project, yeah, with, by some additional research. So we started with a feasibility study of this project. We also did a gap analysis of the whole situation of distribution, repair, maintenance, infrastructure, and we are now close to kick off the project. And afterwards, we also want to do research. We want to come up with a subsidy scheme for those kind of houses, that we at the end learn what is needed, yeah, to make this to a common standard, yeah. And we are talking about this house, this building, 5 floors, 2,500 square meters, 60 apartments, and it's already renovated and in a program of energy efficiency of the government. And we are now coming in with our approach to and our sustainable heating approach, which is based on solar and heat pumps. And we hope we can very soon come up with more information and conclusion on this approach. Just last outlook on the next year on some projects which might be interesting to hear about. It's what we also heard about education, of course. We are running every year this renewable energy camp with like 50 stakeholders, volunteers, experts from municipalities, and we are training them about the technologies, about solar energy efficiency and heat pumps. 3 days, the experts are with us 3 days. So that is one format we want to continue. We also want to continue with an initiative together with a foundation in Germany to reuse solar panels, which are not used anymore in Germany or other countries in Europe, and we bring them to your country. And these are panels which have still a lifetime of 10, 20 years, and they can immediately help, like to supply hospitals, public buildings. So we organized 3 transports this year to Trostianets and Kremenchuk, and we will continue next year with another maybe 10 transports. And the last initiative I want to mention here is about the challenge of skilled workers for like installations of solar. And you all know, you all are aware about the situation with skilled workers and male in the war. So we started this initiative to train women on the installation of solar. We started this year with 10 women, and we will also to expand this idea, this training program next year with at least 100 women who should be able to install solar panels in Ukraine, your country. So coming to the last slide and question again. So I think, we need both. We need to build faster and better. Both, I say, especially in a humanitarian crisis we are facing right now. And there we need exemptions from the rule. But in general, I, of course, support the idea of building better, especially when we start to talk about strategies for the midterm and long term, for the next 5-10 years. We should follow the global trends and the European policies, of course. We heard today the accession talks are ongoing, and so we should anticipate climate protection, energy security, the future technologies and industries. Thanks a lot for your attention. I know it's a lot, and looking forward to more discussions.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andree. Just one short question and remark to this. I mean, Greenpeace is, I would say, a typical NGO from the common perspective point of view, which is well known also, I guess, in Ukraine. So how do you actually, how did you manage to bridge the gap between the municipalities and your organization, that you approach actually the municipalities? As I understood it, you were like sort of providing immediate relief for energy needs. But do you have some insights which you could share on us, please?
Yes, I think that's actually an important challenge we face, and we have to manage that, because if we want to be relevant, we have, of course, to bridge from the idea of the pilot or demonstration project, the bridge to influence or inspire or convince the decision makers on all levels, And as I have shown, we just started actually with a small and actually unexperienced team here in the country, and we will build up like our advocacy and policy work, and this is necessary. We need to talk about what we are doing and what we learned, but we also have a strong organization behind us. So I'm coming from Greenpeace Germany. So I was doing a lot of political work in Germany on energy policy, and I have close contacts to our government. And actually we share, and that's also a unique situation. It was not always like this. We share the same perspective on what has to be done here in this country, the same mindset on going for greener solutions, for building back better. So that's how we try to bridge this gap. We also have an office in Brussels, so we start to do some advocacy work also on EU level. And then we can connect between the work on the ground in the municipalities to our network and our advocacy work internationally. And actually also the mayors, I think, are really, some of them at least, are really stars, I would say, for these kind of projects and ideas. And we also want to give them an arena, wherever possible, to speak out, because that's, of course, the most convincing.
Thank you very much. And that brings us now to the last, but not least important point.
Don't say that.
This is the rose-colored elephant in the room, because all these initiatives, they need one thing, and that is money. And Serhiy now will talk about where the money comes from.
No, I will not. I will talk about how to connect money and capacity building, actually. So just jumping a little bit to what UNIDO is and what UNIDO does. So UNIDO, which stands for United Nations Industrial Development Organization, has had like a 30 years long industrial energy efficiency program in 27 countries. In Ukraine, we started almost 10 years ago at the end of 2014. Actively started in 2015. We did a massive capacity building program. We trained more than 200 high-level specialists, including like not just energy managers, but also trainers of the trainers, national level expert, international level expert. And despite that fear that is very relevant to investors and to UN organization, I have to admit, when the war started, we saved the project, we continued operating, and one of the things I will tell you one of the things very special we did within the project. But you need to focus a lot on innovation deployment and spreading new technologies, making them accessible to different markets worldwide, specifically in Ukraine, and a very, very good experience in terms of capacity building. I would even say that our trainings on industrial management systems and energy system optimization were the best what we did in Ukraine. And a lot of other organizations like GIZ and many others, USAID, they're using specifically the experts that were trained by us. And within our specific project, which is industrial energy efficiency and decarbonization, we already save like 30 million kilowatt hours per year. And the question mark is because some of the facilities and some of the projects we participated with, well, unfortunately, they are no longer operational. But that only gives us that we have more things to do. But just, for clarity, because we were talking a lot on this panel and during this event about the energy efficiency in buildings, where industrial energy efficiency stands for, and here one of two triads, so-called triads, which links processes all together. So as you all know, we have this triad where we always need to look at things happening all together, the link between society, state, and business. If you want to implement anything smart better, I would say we need to build back smarter. It's always a linkage. But industrial energy efficiency is a profit generation part. It's within the businesses, and this is the only way to reduce energy intensity of GDP. And energy efficiency is actually very profitable. For what we've seen in examples that were generated through the project lifetime, it is very profitable. It's more profitable than renewables, and if done properly, energy efficiency project, I would say cash flow based or returns based, it's fantastically profitable. Some of the projects have a return period of 15 minutes. But in the context of Ukraine, we have sure bottlenecks. One of that is engagement risk. You still need people to engage into any program. Technology and technology availability risk, put a price risk. So those all are the reasons why investments are not happening or are stuck. And this is this is the biggest risk for Ukraine in the war conditions, because economy, it's not just about money, it's about processes. And the most dangerous thing that may happen if your processes would stop, this is the worst, you have country no more, or slow down, which affects people, communities, corporates, businesses, all of them. And that is why we need to link all together, like setting the financing, setting the capacity building programs, and ensure successful project management. So how we have to handle those risks? The financial risk we handled with financial mechanism. For UNIDO, we implemented this loan guarantee fund, which was implemented before the COVID. So I think I really like challenging assignments. That's why I cannot quit until it's done. And every year it's more and more challenging. So when we launched the loan guarantee fund, and I said, okay, yeah, it's done. I'm free to go. COVID happened. And we had to ensure that it will be operational through the COVID. We went through COVID, did successful loan issues, and then what happened? And so I think that at least until war is over, I'm stick with loan guarantee fund. Then, of course, we need to protect real assets. For that, we can do war insurance. It's also doable. It's very doable, I can tell you. I'm glad that it started being articulated, but we had to do that like 2 years ago. it still was doable 2 years ago. So there is a huge time gap. But the most critical part is human life protection, and this is the bottleneck for many international companies to enter Ukrainian market. And for that, they wait only for a solution which is called peace, or, because that's why the question mark, it also can be as an exemption, a bilateral government exemption. So like, for example, if corporates would enter Ukrainian market, they are looking into exemption into their regulation towards human life safety. All right, so you need a loan guarantee fund, yes. Why it actually was possible to do that? I don't know, Marika, why it's a big question even now, how we did it. But my version of why is because we had very smart people involved. This is first thing. You always, when you're doing that, you need to have smart people involved that have a vision how it works. Mere understanding of words is not enough. Besides, the word guarantee for many people has very different meaning. Some people, when you say guarantee, think of a state guarantee. I can tell you that Ukraine, in terms of the state guarantee, is already ran out of capacity to issue state guarantee. So now we talk about donor-funded guarantee, of course, EU with Ukraine facility mechanism that was advertised at the very, very beginning today. They do that, but again, guarantee also has a lot of implication. You can guarantee the revenue cash flow, you can guarantee reduction of collateral, so to boost the investment. And that's exactly what we've done. So first of all, we've built the capacity, technical capacity. We implemented ISO 50000 series standards, which stand for energy management system and energy efficiency audits. And we created this, robust technical capacity, and then we started pitching the financial mechanism, which was actually very difficult to pitch within the organization that usually like to work with grants. But the entire scheme is very simple. We use the Citibank as our financial intermediary, who reissued portfolio guarantee to Ukhrgazbank. We clearly set the criteria within which this portfolio guarantee can be used. And Ukhrgazbank was issuing loans under very, very attractive terms with almost 100% coverage. And in all those numbers, there are only two negative things. Which one? Who can tell me? Oh, no one? The size, the size matters. So unfortunately, we already ran out of money. We used those money more than once. So this is actually an example of a very revolving mechanism. So the amount of portfolio guarantee is already used. We used we issued all the loans within the portfolio. So Ukhrgazbank did their task, and they did it fine. And the second thing that was at some point very limiting. It's the duration of the loan was limited to 18 months and below. So those were very kind of short-term loans. And still, it all worked out properly and great. And, funny thing that this project is at the very end of its existence. Who doesn't know, we always have a limited lifetime of the project that we run in UN and in UNIDO specifically. So all this money will be returned by the end of the project. So at the end of the project, hopefully we will still have our entire portfolio guarantee available for continuing. And I'm very hopeful that we will be able to set it the way that it will continue. So, lesson learned, size matters, scale, duration, technical assistance. And this LGF model is applicable not only for industrial energy efficiency, it can be applicable for other sectors too, not only in Ukraine. And the only task that we have undone is to scale it up. And really concluding, I have to say that this is the task for technical assistant projects and organization to the donors and to the government. We need to create a security box for private investors to be able to operate in Ukraine. And there are instruments available to be implemented, because the risk of having Ukrainian economy slowing down drastically is much higher than the risk under any financial mechanism that you can face. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I only can, from my own experience, state that this is exactly what we see with the Austrian companies as well, that we actually see that there is a reluctance to invest in Ukraine because of the instability and the planning horizon, which is very short term, and that's just scaring all types of investors away. So this type of framework or safety box, as you called it, for investors is something which is urgently needed also from our point of view.
And it's doable.
And it's doable, obviously, yes. And I'm very grateful for that. So I would like to use the last minutes to give you the opportunity to ask any questions. So if you have any questions, just feel free to raise your hand. Please also state who you are before you raise the question. So please, the floor is yours.
My name is Inge Zaga. I work for the European Commission in Brussels in the Ukraine service. I wanted to ask the last speaker about this revolving mechanism, because you said the money has been spent. But if it's a revolving mechanism, it should actually be never-ending. Have you thought of setting up a separate entity that could then really keep the money revolving?
Well, absolutely. Actually, this is the task for the next year for me to finally select which scenario can work, because we have thought about a couple of scenarios. Like maybe if you know, like recently, and I also have been helping, decarbonization fund for Ukraine was launched. It also has different financial instruments that they already started operating. So we're considering different scenarios. As UN, and because we always work for the benefit of the country and people within that country, we need either, as you said, to set up a separate entity that will be a holder of the capital and to continue this model to operate. So this is one of the scenarios. Or another scenario, we have to merge it with a fund, but under very specific conditions, how those money will continue to be used. And within both scenarios, you need to ensure that there will be professional human capital that could comprehend how it's possible to use that. But thank you for your question.
May I say something? Yesterday, I went back from the Washington, from the annual meetings of the IMF and World Bank, and the war insurance, it was the one of key message which our Ukrainian National Bank discussed. I don't know the details about these negotiations, but I hope maybe we will hear and see something interesting. Thank you. Because our government thinking about this topics, because war insurance is very, very important.
Yeah, you actually can hear it right now a little bit from me. Yeah, you see, we are very funny panelists. We just ask and answer just to each other. Like, we actually communicate a lot on the side too. But yes, war insurance is extremely important. It's also very important under this specific condition, and over the government, under the leadership of the National Bank of Ukraine, are working on that. However, they look at that slightly at different perspective that we look at that at UNIDO, because we at UNIDO were also approached with a kind of a request to brainstorm what can be done in terms of war insurance. And we'll look at that more and more specifically at the energy sector, because this is currently the most urgent or emergency sector that needs to be handled, because it can lead to humanitarian crisis if it's not handled. And you need to have a war insurance specifically on energy equipment, etc. So I can tell you that you need to have in place a war insurance scheme, it is already placed, like for example with Black Sea Initiative for transporting grain. So it exists, it is operated, and it already was created. But you need more. So you need specifically within the energy sector, and the National Bank of Ukraine, it looks at that slightly at a different perspective and more in the sector of housing and transport. So
I think it was about everything.
no, well, it should be about everything. Yes, it should be about everything, but I can tell you that you don't have a crocodile who can chew all of that. So yeah, I think it will be different mechanism, and it's better. So there is a room for donors to be involved. There is definitely a need for the government to be involved, and it needs to be done too.
Lena, please.
Yes, I have a quick question to Tetiana and to Pavel. So Tetiana, Yulia mentioned in the previous panel that they will try now to get this special status for NZEP buildings, but where you stand with in this, let's say, process and dialogues with the ministry, how long do you think it will take us to adopt the standards that would allow us to actually build one of these, like normally in a normal construction process, to build one of these NZEP requirements? And I would immediately ask the question, before I forget, it's becoming late and tiring. Pavel, and the question to you, so you several times mentioned that obviously this, let's say, higher level renovation and new technologies in NZEP is of course very expensive, but I'm not sure if I caught the figures correctly. Could you maybe just summarize once again? So how much more expensive in terms of capex costs, and how much, if you studied this in the study, and maybe I missed it in the presentation, what is the impact on the OPEX running costs in terms of OPEX? So how does it influence the operation maintenance? You know, because we always say, yes, it's expensive in the beginning, but then we're saving during the life cycle of the building. So maybe you could just pick up a couple of those figures here. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think, I believe that the new requirements will be adopted until the end of this year, because as I know, it's already ready. Only the legislative procedures on the Ministry of Regional Development, because I think it will happen very soon.
Do we have the presentation? I really don't remember the numbers off the back of my head.
Can we put Pavel Bilek's presentation back on, please?
Yeah, if we could just put the presentation back on for a second. Thanks. Perfect, thanks. So, a very good question. So these are the rough numbers for what the difference is per square meter per type of building, and this is just the capex. So this doesn't say anything about the actual savings themselves. But the idea is, of course, and this is very straightforward, the bigger the investment, the bigger the savings. The bigger issue when it comes to all of this is, again, the kind of energy prices that are underlying this and that are behind this. And that's ultimately what then leads to investment periods that look like this, right? So, I mean, there's no simple answer with simple numbers, but I think that the bigger picture problem is effectively the fact that, especially for the gas side of things, it's just, and for the district heating systems in general, things just aren't working out too well at the moment. One thing which I also did before I came here was we reran some of the numbers for the heat pumps. And here, again, you have a pretty big problem, because if you increase the price of the electricity, but you don't increase the price of the actual gas itself or the district heating, then it actually makes the heat pumps less competitive, not more competitive, right? Because the input is electricity, and if you increase the cost of that, then that takes the economics out of whack. So that's, I think, the bigger problem is just that there's not this good balance between the costs here. And the study and the underlying work, which your colleagues in Kiev did for us, we had all the numbers there, and I'm very, very happy to chat about them or to kind of bring out the annex. But in a very simple nutshell, I mean, yeah, costs are high, but they wouldn't be astronomically high. And I think for some of these building types, again, depending on where they get their hot water from, where they get their heating from, some of the payback periods can be quite nice, actually. And I think that's maybe something that I should have mentioned from the start. I understand that I think a lot of what I said sounded pretty pessimistic, but I'm actually very optimistic on this in general. I just think that there needs to be fundamental reforms that happens before this is catalyzed. I see there's a few more questions now.
Andy.
No, can you get back to this slide? Thank you. My question is, we were discussing now, and I don't know to whom the question. Maybe it's an input or an answer, maybe to something what is not a question, whatever it is. So we were talking about education as a requirement. We are talking about pilot projects that are required. It's for Greenpeace, we need pilot projects that can be extended. It's for NSEP, we need pilot projects to be extended, and so on and so on. My first question is, does anybody know how much grant money is going to come in the building sector to Ukraine in the next 5 years? From all these 400, 700 billion that we are talking about, how much grants are coming, and from where are they coming from? Grants.
Yeah.
Approximately.
Yeah, actually, from the first tranche that was already given, which is about 5 billion that has been transferred, up to 1 billion is going as grant and blended financing.
Okay. So my next question would be, this is over a certain period of time that is going to the building sector, rehabilitation, new construction, whatever it is. Let's call it like that. The money is coming, let's assume 50% is coming from EU financing. Is there not the taxonomy something that is applicable? Do we not have to apply, are we not enforced to apply standards that we have in European Union and not Ukrainian standard? And doesn't it matter if we are now investing? Why are we talking about payback periods? There is no payback period. There's this grant money of 1 billion euros that is coming into this country to save the war, to save us from a bigger war, and specifically to create demonstration projects that will have an added value for all the future and all the developments and standard development and whatever it is. And here is my question for Build Back Better,
Save it.
Why are we not now creating the outstanding buildings, one outstanding building after the other, and it can be similar as fast?
You already do have some sort of minimum standards. I mean, this is not that it's just it goes into anything.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of the energy efficiency regulation, I mean, it's not super disconnected from the EU. There needs to be some sort of further convergence process, but it's not like these are completely different worlds, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
and this is the point. And when I'm looking at the payback periods, we know from Europe, we are talking about 30%. But when I'm looking at these figures, this is a payback periods that I cannot deal with. I know it from Austria, from Germany, so many countries. We had 30 years of time with subsidies in an amount for PV, for building rehabilitation, insulation, in all our public buildings and private buildings. Everybody is getting money from the government. Sure. Now we have the time of grant money. This is like a subsidy that EU is giving to Ukraine.
So, I mean,
and we should not talk about payback periods.
Maybe just one small thing. This
is
unsubsidized,
12,
no grants.
Exactly. 12 years is payback.
High interest rates, this hugely impacts any sort of project economics,
Absolutely.
right? So once you're able to de-risk that, that also changes the economics of a lot of these things, right? But,
and you know, nobody excluded human greed, you know. So you worked with a EU bank, Mommy Bank. You know the source of the money, what they receive and convert into loan. So I mean, I can make it really rough and explain it once again to all the people, or we will continue over the coffee. So you will have.
At the end of the day, it's my money.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Could you help us and aware about how many grants and how many costs we will get? Maybe you know, because I don't know. I don't know any project in the residential sector.
This was exactly the figure. We are always talking at the moment in all areas, renewable energy and everywhere, we are talking about investment requirement in US dollars and in the range between 450 and 800 billion over the next 10 years. But I'm working at the moment only on grant money.
I have to put a point on this now. I mean, this is a very interesting discussion. It's very interesting, but I think we should continue this. The last 15 seconds for you.
15 seconds, yeah, because it's almost like answer. Andres, we need people like you at investment committee meetings. So they will actually understand where the money comes from and how they have to be used, and liability entanglement, which they don't have on the money, how they have to be applied. And once again, I hate when money are considered as an audit, a reporting issue. They have to be considered as a facilitator to economic processes.
And that was a wonderful last word. Thank you very much. I would like to thank all of you to be in the audience here. I would like to thank our panelists here. Thank you very much for being here. And if there are any other questions left, please, there is a coffee outside to ask it. Thank you very much and see you again.